Hey guys, it's June 2023, and we've got another big release across all of our Foundry tiers. So this month features a particularly novel and extensive release for Dungeondraft users. Now that I've ported the entire unlimited terrain system to Dungeondraft, which it opens up all kinds of new capabilities for those even novice map makers amongst us. I created a whole tutorial for that system, which I'll link here. As for the Foundry basic subscribers, we've not only expanded the unlimited train system, but we've added new bridges and almost 30 new rich maps for you to play out of the box. Typically, we release around 10 scenes each month, so 30 is a big jump. But we just could create so much new and interesting things. I thought it would be a good time to give you a bunch of new playable maps. So our 3D expansion gives the Foundry Advanced subscribers more city and urban assets, while also giving you new scenes, including a scene that you'll see today if you watch the one-shot that Joby ran for FoundryCon. So I've posted that on my YouTube channel, and I'll link to it here. So you can see some players actually running a 3D game for their very first time. It's pretty awesome, and it shows just how playable 3D is. And so that's enough for the highlights. Let's jump into the detailed walkthrough. So first off, you'll find all the new 2D content, the Foundry basic content, between the Towns module and the Premium module. Towns contains all of the new bridges as well as the new Tileable terrains for this month, and you'll find the new prefabs in the new release compendium. And the Towns scene compendium has the inventory scenes with the unlimited terrains. The Premium module contains all of the ready-made scenes. Don't forget to update nuts and bolts. I've updated all the old random terrain macros with versions that take advantage of the new maintain scale and maintain aspect ratio functions, and you can easily tell the difference with the new numbering system. As usual, the 3D assets can be found in the 3D compendiums, prefabs, and scenes. Okay, so for the Foundry Basic subscribers, we have new tileable terrains added this month. You can see them here. Before I go through this, one of the biggest innovations this month is that I've moved this entire unlimited terrain system into Dungeondraft. So all of these textures that you see here, as well as all the new ready-made scenes, are all made using that system. So if you also use Dungeondraft or you want to get into it, you can create scenes and tileable maps just like I've done here. If you use that system, just jump over to the Dungeondraft timestamp to see more. Okay, so walking through this scene, we have a lot more desert and grassy options, including rivers, more badlands, rocky terrains, and now this introduction of settlement terrains. So these are most useful if you're doing like airship maps, but you can certainly find other uses for them. But you can see it's just like little settlements that are put together in a way that they're tileable and you can scroll them. You also have day and night versions, and I'll show you that here in a second. All of these terrains have been added to the random terrain macros, so be sure to update and replace all of them from nuts and bolts, right? So you'll find them here under remastered. There'll be in your nuts and bolts macro compendium, and all of these overlays here have been updated to 0.0.2. So make sure you replace your old ones with these, and these will automatically pick up these new terrains. We do have some new macros, which I'll show you here in a second. The random overlay terrain macro for airships, and then the scrolling token magic effects controls, which Adif just invented. It's super cool. I'll show you that here in just a second. As usual, you can test everything on the screen. So if you open up your macros and you bring them down to your macro bar, if you'd like to do that, you can test these new randomization macros just to see all the different scenes and different configurations. So speaking of airships, we're going to go to one of our unlimited terrain templates. We have 3 of them now. We have square, long, and then regular rectangle. You can make these different sizes. You can just resize the entire scene, and you can use this as a basis for creating your new scenes. So if you need to do that, just come in here, create a copy of this scene, give it whatever name that you want. and then give it whatever grid size that you want, right? Really any at all. And then this single tile in the middle of the scene, you just need to use your fit tile to scene macro, and it will stretch it to the parameters of your scene. And you just need to move it to make sure it's in the right spot. Then once you have that, this tile is just a regular old tile. And let's show you, for example, what we can do here. Let's grab let's grab an airship, drag it into our scene. Give it a second to populate all of its attachments. Okay, now it's ready to go. Again, you can make the scene as large as you want, but then we will go ahead and move to our tile layer. We'll select it. And then we're going to press this new scrolling token magic effects control. What that did is just engaged these controls. Now, if we want to take off, you can see we're rising in altitude. And if we want to start moving forward, we just start accelerating. And again, we can get closer to the ground. The closer we get, the faster it'll move. The faster the movement will be perceived. You can rise back up again. You can make the artwork shift up or down. You can pause and it will save its state. So it's just a really cool, handy function for you to do these new kinds of airship maneuvers. Let's jump over to our new airship terrain creator. And if I click it a few times, you can see it also gives me some of these cool terrains where I've got a city down below. Right? If I click it some more, here's a nighttime settlements in the desert. And you can always come in here and change this. You can come into all of these tile references and you can either comment them out, like these are commented out, or you can add new ones, whatever you want to be able to cycle between for these like airship maps. And finally, for the towns release, we do have these new bridges. These are all consolidated to a few prefabs. You can see which ones are designated as prefabs here. But in each of the prefabs, you will find, if you right-click it and you have multi-face tile enabled, you will find all the other prefabs or all the other tiles that correspond in here. So it's just an easy way to quickly change the style. You just drag them in. Like this one, for example, is all of the modular bridges. We just drag this in. It drops in a modular bridge. We can then release it using token attacher. Get the little garbage can there. It releases it. And all of these pieces are modular then. The colored ones will obviously take recoloring, so you can make them any color that you want. And you'll see us introducing some more styles here as time goes on. But this just gives you a way to quickly put bridges in all of these new scenes, because with this new terrain maker, you can really create lots of really, really rich scenes. And so bridges just help you connect everything together. And you'll see plenty of examples of how I use these bridges in the sample scenes. Keep in mind, besides being colorable, you can also apply different types of effects. So, you know, if you wanted a bridge to be covered in vines, for example, or scorched or covered in grunge or whatever, you can apply those as well. Okay, so for our premium scenes, we've added a whopping 28 new scenes. I mentioned these are all made using the new rich texture assets for Dungeondraft, so be sure to pick up the new packs and the sample scene I included to show you how they work. Let's look at some of the highlights, okay? So the canyon crossing scene, like many maps, includes a bridge. You can actually just right-click this bridge and change its style. There is a drop shadow applied to the bridge just to give it extra depth. And you do have elevated vision module set up in the app as well. So we can be down here in the gorge, or we can be up here and be able to cross the bridge, and everything works like you would expect. There's also ambient sounds for all of these scenes. And these sounds will often change if you turn the lights down as well. So experiment with turning the lights off. Remember, you can drop anything into these scenes, like a guard tower or a rowboat, things like that. You can also make these much larger or smaller than they are as well, since they're generally scale neutral as far as the artwork goes. Cave in the Frozen Mountains is a simple scene. It's ready for you to drop in any kind of campsite, building, or some other plot hook. You've got a cave, up here in the corner. You've got a bridge that spans over to another area. You can drop and fall down into this gorge. And it's just basically a flexible scene for different types of skirmishes or storytelling. Cemetery by the Stream features some module elements of past releases, letting you activate this sort of nefarious altar. Or you can discover this little buried surprise, this, skeleton over here in the corner. You can change this to other types of things if you don't want it to be, skeleton. You can have a treasure box there, for example, things like that. Just little items that you can, again, add and delete if you want to and change things around. And you can change the bridge style like I showed you before. The Desert Border Crossing is, I think, a really great map. It shows you, I actually used the terrain to design the map. And it's full of tactical design and changeable elements. And it's just a good example of how these terrains can actually drive some great design for you, right? So you can see there's elevated token or elevated vision here as well. So you can really have a great tactical experience on this map, running up to these ramparts, being able to shoot from these ballista. This campsite is entirely interactive. You can delete it or not. You can right click and change the stuff here. There's things underneath these tents. You'll notice the control token is right here, so you can literally delete this, move it around, add something else. You can change this wagon to any number of alternative wagons or vendor types. And then I put a interactive tile here. It's matte enabled, so if you stand close to it and click on it, you can have it do something. You just need to come in here and decide what you want to do. It's set to filter based on distance. Right now, it gives you a notification to the GM, but you can come in here and make it interactable by just the GM or by the players. And maybe they find something inside that skull, right? Or they find a secret passage, or maybe it spawns an enemy, something like that. The Desert Road Defended is another map that shows off these rich terrains. I mean, you can't get this kind of detail trying to draw this within Dungeondraft, right? But with these terrains, you can do it really, really simply. And you can see just some of the other components from other releases. You can go inside of all of these tents. You can actually remove these tents if you want to, right? Here's some of the control tokens to be able to remove these different pieces. And you can even change this background. So if we go into the background of the Desert Road Defended, we can see all of the other backgrounds that are available in general. So this one, for example, if we pick that, now you can see it got rid of some of those spikes, right? It makes it look a little bit less crazy. And all these things, these bones and stuff can all be removed and changed out for other types of things. In case you don't want this to be like an orcish place, you can even get rid of all of these and just have this be a skirmish map. The Fire River and Flame Chasm maps also showcase prior releases together with the new terrains. And this is just a super flexible map. And by the way, Dungeondraft version, you can quickly make this like water flowing through and add, instead of being all rocky, it can be, grassy with forest or jungle or other things around it. So I really recommend you guys get in and peek in at some of these sample scenes and see how to change them. Of course, you can change the type of bridge here. I just picked some that I thought would work with the style, and they do have some token magic effects and filtering applied to make them blend in with the scene. Flame Chasm is related. This is another map where you can change the background image to something simpler. This one's got sort of some cultist things going on, a bridge of boulders that's been created going across this, but there's a scene without all of these in it. There's lots of other stuff I won't go through in detail, but like this hidden waterfall scene is super fun. It's got some interactive elements around the waterfall itself. You can hear the sounds playing. There's a chest here with the vines applied to it. You can literally just cut and paste this chest and put it into another scene. You can also make it interactive with Monk's Active tiles. Other fun scenes are like this island mountain scene. You can see the level of detail and the density of detail here is really next level, right? And to be able to draw these and make these yourself within a couple of minutes is pretty fun. Inside here, you've got some interactive elements. You've got a cave tile added to the back if you want to use it. And again, remember, you can always delete these map notes whenever you want to, just by going to your token layer and clicking this button, and then say, yes, I want to delete the map notes. Check out the Jungle Crater map with some interactive elements that you can change. The Jungle Ruins map, that just shows you how you can create these rich terrains and then actually wall them off in interesting ways and make your players sort of navigate through them and discover things as they go, right? And again, these are all terrains that I was able to draw within a few seconds, right? And of course, you can change all these pieces out, but here's something where they could, find a staircase that teleports them somewhere else. You might recognize this river. This is a modified version of that fire river you saw before. It's got a few tiles added to it. It's got the obligatory suspension bridge going across it. But again, just more options to show you how these things work together. You can come in here and delete these or modify these and create something entirely different. Here's a map of a shrine. You can change the background of this as well to add some paths and some pillars and other things that you might like. This centerpiece can be interacted with. Got some animated components here. Just ideas to help you think about how you want to add to this. You've got some trees, prefabs added to the scene as well, just for some tactical elements. The rock quarry has lots of interactable elements. You can explode these barrels. You can change, of course, all of these elements as well. And then you've got also a cave down here where if you get within 1 square of it, you can interact with it and you can make it do something like teleport or spawn enemies again, that sort of thing. This is also using elevated vision modules, you can see, so that you can sort of fight down tactically to the end, or maybe you come out of this cave and have to fight your way out. The Rocky Cape Lighthouse is a fun map. There's a lot of space here to drop in something like a galleon or a trireme from that set, but your players can actually enter this lighthouse and it's explorable, right? So they can climb up these different levels. Perhaps there's NPCs here, perhaps there's a battle, maybe they need to defend this lighthouse from something else, and they can get all the way up to the top and fight there as well. Scar in the Earth, really simple map, just something that you can pick up and create some sort of story around. Seaside Cliff is another very, very simple map with lots of flexibility. You can add ships down here, you can have things to defend the cliffs up there. Secret Caves actually comes in 3 different varieties. This one is made only using the levels module, and you can see you can change the decor inside of these caves, but you've got these sort of interesting carved entrances to these caves. They're explorable. You can put different types of things in them. But I wanted to show you different ways of making a map so that you could come in here and decide based on the encounter that you want to run, like how would you do it, right? Would you use levels? Would you use elevated vision, right? And, here's one where I put in a sarcophagus that you can interact with as well. This one's made with levels. You've also got one that's a mix of levels and elevated vision. I recommend you come in here and test with some sample players and just see which ones you like better. And then here's a simple one that really has no caves at all. It's just a battle map where you can have, a campsite or else that you want and be able to tell a different story here, right? Add trees, do whatever you want. Smoldering Nexus is another fun map. This is another one that you can get into and look at how it was designed using the new rich textures, but just adding some pieces from past releases here to throw in something interesting. The Snowy Fjord Town is a really simple map, right? It's just, it's a town, right, in fjords, and I built this town. These components are movable, so you can adjust these interior elements and change them to something else that you like better. But this is a multi-story town, so you can jump up to the next story, and you've got some ability to decorate these other components the way that you want to. This town looks good also when the lights are down low. And you've even got a little frozen rowboat that's sort of bobbing in the water. These snowy landscape maps are just empty, sort of flexible maps that kind of have everything in place, including sound. And they're just here to show you again how you can design really, really rich landscapes and then put things on top of them, right? This is a huge, you can see the squares here. This is a huge scene where you can have some big, like, epic fights, or you could put a town here, all kinds of things. And the snowy plains, again, another one where you have some flexibility in terms of what you want to do with it. Stone Canyon uses elevated vision. And I can go down into this canyon and then come back up the other way. But this is, again, super flexible. You can change the base components in Dungeondraft, but I can also just move this river. Or I could have painted a river into it. I've got these different prefabs kind of set up with trees around the edges, but you can do a lot with this map, just adding components to it, or just, simply having a canyon that you want to fight in. Stream crossing just gives you some other components that you're used to seeing from other releases. Here we've got just a basic tavern that your players can step into. But again, you can remove this tavern and really create anything else. Just look for these little components here. These are your little control tokens, and they just show you like what they correspond to, and you can move these tokens around. Right, here's the cabin, or here's the tavern, and we can change it for something else. Temple of the Gift is a very, very large scene that your players can make their way through. You can add different types of things into this environment if you want to have it do more. But if they actually enter this temple, you can see from the Magic Tower release, we've got the magic hands here with this floating gift, right? And this gift is really just a tile. We can change it to anything that we want, right? I have levels enabled here. If I double click that a couple times, it gets me to my background tile. And I do have to have quick edit on. And I can change this to something else, right? It's just a square tile, so I could change it to any other object and have that object continue to float in between these hands. And then I can add things to it, right? So if I have a player interact with it, I can have it give them an item or give them a curse or whatever that gift in quotes might be for this temple. This is just from the Elvish release, this temple itself. But I recommend you come in here and move some things around and just see how these pieces are used to modify these maps. Volcano Island uses some great animated elements to create this volcano. You've got this shipwreck here that is being used by smugglers. Your players can enter that shipwreck and interact with NPCs and things like that. You've got other elements around here of just various types of debris and shipwreck components from other releases, just to show you how this stuff works. You can come up onto this volcano as well and hear and interact with, its sound and things like that. So you can have some great little battles on this map in, again, removing any of the pieces and changing the map for other stuff that you want. And last but not least, the White Mountain Circle. This is just a map that's got this sort of built-in depression, which you can do lots of things with. I just put a teleporting portal in the middle of that, which you can make interactive. But again, just the level of detail that you can get with these maps, and it's the right kind of detail. A lot of detail to create richness, but it's not so much detail that it's, like a photorealistic type of engagement. So it's to me, it's sort of the next level of how we can design maps to be really engaging and really beautiful, but also very, very fast to set up. So that's it for Foundry Basic. Let's keep going with the rest of the release.
Hi guys, Swift here again to talk about this month's 3D release, what all is involved, and how to get most out of it. Firstly though, I would like to thank the DMs and players who took part in FoundryCon this month, particularly those who took part in games using 3D Canvas. We got a lot of great feedback from that, so that is much appreciated. For those who didn't know, the Foundry subreddit ran an online convention this month, so I spent some time earlier in the month getting things together and helping a couple of DMs out for it, which included making a map for it, which will be included in this release. So as you can see for this month, we've done a bit of an expansion to the city tileset here, adding in a bunch of matching backdrop buildings over here. They sit on the grid quite nicely and snap together quite well, and they're designed so that they can face in several directions and just be used to block out some city streets. Like this one at the end here has this storefront looking front door on this side, and then around the back they've got a kind of back door with a balcony and a little side door too for some visual interest. So you can have this facing in any direction and kind of just line a street with it. As well as these various buildings, we've also put down another building with an interior. These buildings are quite a bit more complicated, but I've been figuring out ways this month to make them easier to use, including creating an entire interior that is just a single tile, this one here. It looks like quite a complex assortment of decorative bits and pieces that would take forever to put together manually. But in this case, as with everything I make, it just snaps right to the grid, so you can just drop it right in and have it immediately fit inside the building. I've got a similar collection of decorations for outside of the building as well. There are some decorations for the structure itself to go with the upper half as well, just some greenery and signage there. And then I've also got some outdoor seating for it as a single tile as well, since this is intended to be like a cafe or eatery type situation. So we just drag this over here, and that just snaps to the front here in front of these windows. But of course, it is just tables, chairs, and plants, so you can put that absolutely anywhere. As well as these buildings, we've also added in some marketplace-themed objects and some clutter objects to go along with them. The way these clutter objects work is fairly simple. Say you've got this market stall here. It's called Market Stall Wood. By default, it's just a blank market stall that you can put whatever you like onto. But to make filling out a market scene easier, there are several objects here that are called Clutter Market Stall with a descriptor. For example, this one is Clutter Market Stall Grocer. And the idea is anything with market stall in the name, with clutter, will fit on any of these tables. And it's all just snapped to the grid, so if I just select this here and pull it back, then it just snaps on, and immediately you've got a decorated market stall filled with miscellaneous bits and pieces. In this case, it's a grocer of some sort. And then once you've got the clutter snapped to the market stall, you can select both of them, like so, and then just rotate them freely, move them around as you like, place them wherever you need to on a scene. And there you go. You get yourself a nicely arranged marketplace. We'll see more of these in actual use shortly in the maps we've got lined up for this month. So speaking of, we've got the standard table stalls here, along with a set of interchangeable clutters that will all fit on the tables, as well as a tiny market stall cart with a kind of herbalist decor for it. To go along with these, we've got some crate racks with a few different sets of contents for them. We've got a kind of bakery one and a more vegetable one. Some drying racks for fish and meat. And then just some miscellaneous decorations like these signs and this post box here. Individually, as you can see by looking at these, they look quite complicated, but with 3D Canvas, putting them together is super simple. I would like to hear what you all think of the concept, though. The main advantage of this sort of thing, having it all condensed into a single tile, is that it's really easy to use, and it's also very efficient. But is there a demand for smaller details, like, say, individual crates or, like, individual bowls of things or that sort of thing? Or is more of this sort of thing more useful to you, do you think? Let's know by the usual channels on that one. Anyway, on to the maps for this month. We're going to start with the map from the FoundryCon event, which was a bit of a remix of the Delian Tomb. In this case, we wanted to showcase what adding even just a little bit of verticality to our map can do. So in the case of the offering room here, we had the entrance upper level, and then these walkways to either side, so the enemies can kind of look beneath them. Other than that, things have been made much bigger just to kind of make for better movement, bigger encounters, that sort of thing. On a related note, the corridors, we originally made them very wide just to make it easier to kind of play in them. These are 4 squares wide. But it turned out we actually kind of liked them aesthetically, so that was a kind of good thing to find out, I think. In cases like this long corridor as well, we've also made use of some of the lighting tools in 3D Canvas. For example, these straight parts have kind of blue lights in them that are quite dark, and then in the corner we've got this bright orangey torchlight here. So it's got a real interesting contrast between the kind of bright areas and the dark areas, without making it too hard to see what's actually there in this case. For the statue room, we went for an ascent up several flights of stairs. Putting archers on these ledges makes getting up a bit more treacherous, but the map being in 3D means it's really obvious when you can or can't see someone. So players, for example, take cover down here against the walls, and then you don't have to explain to the players that this is at a lower level when they can, visibly see it. There's someone up on this ledge would be able to see down to there. The statue itself at the top was another mini from the token compendium. So that was a good trick I found a little bit ago. I definitely suggest people try out for statues of any sort. In the back room as well, behind the secret door, we've made use of some of the new VFX from the new VFX engine in 3D Canvas. This particular one is Mist 2, the fog around the floor here. It's set to a relatively low intensity, so that here in the middle where the brightest light is, it's a bit harder to see and a bit more clear where the floor is. But around the corners of the room, amongst the shadows, it really kind of highlights the edges of these sarcophagi here, which I think is a pretty neat effect. I definitely suggest looking into this Mist 2 VFX for anybody who wants to do any kind of spooky undead type area. So this map was used for a one-shot at the convention by Joby, the DM for the Familiars, who's absolutely great behind the DM screen. It was recorded, so that is either already available to watch or will be soon by the time that you're watching this. I'm certainly looking forward to it myself. That'll be a good one. But for now, let's look at the next maps. So this next map is a bit of a continuation of the city street map from last month. We've got a market set up along this coastal road here, with the market stalls arranged along the sides of the road. With this sort of map, you could, for example, take the contents of one of these stalls here, and then just remove it, and then place your own stuff on there, like weapons or trinkets or something more plot relevant if you wanted the PCs to interact with the market itself. Otherwise, you could just use this market as a backdrop for an encounter, like say a chase or a combat happening out in the streets here during a busy market day. We've also got a ledge up here, up some stairs, where we've got the cafe set up here. As you can see, we've got the greenery decor outside the building, the chairs set up outside, and then on the inside, if I select this token, we've got it set up with levels so that the upper side and the exterior walls disappear, leaving just the interior so that players can see in nicely. Though, of course, they can just move their cameras right down into the place for a pretty cool effect. I think this sort of building would be very useful for a very kind of close-in combat scene. Obviously, there's not that much space available in here. Or something where the party is fighting into or out of this building. Or, of course, it could just be used as a backdrop for kind of a roleplay scene. Like, I found that having some sort of visual inspiration really helps with the creativity. Seeing what all is in the environment, what the environment looks like, really kind of informs roleplay, I feel. And we've also got further down the street here, up on the ledge, we've just got some more space here. So you can fit quite a lot of stuff in here for a bit of a kind of urban adventure type air. The next map we're looking at is a bit more of a traditional dungeon map. This is the city sewers. So starting from this guard post here with a door leading off map, the party could emerge from there into these underground waterways. There's a little light cast down from the gratings above along the waterways. but mostly it's a very dark map with a lot of dark corners, so definitely encourage for the players to bring their own light to this here. And we've got a few rooms dotted around the place with a few things set up in them. Like nearby, we've got a campsite set up here. Obviously, someone has been hiding out down here in the sewers. Over towards the middle of the map, we've got a storage room where somebody has been writing or reading important documents. We've got some unused spaces, like a room over here, or this room here, which could be filled with various creatures. And then, of course, at the far end, we have a natural cave behind a broken down wall. This has been made using the 3D Canvas Room Builder tool. So you just click and drag out a line using the rough tool here, and that creates the walls on the floor, and then cut out one corner here for the entrance. And then with the stone texture here that comes with it, this is stone realistic. It looks very much like wet stone, which I think is perfect for this sort of environment. And then inside we've got broken down or smashed crates, a stone altar, and a very large cot that something has seemingly been living in. So some sort of large creature has been dwelling in this cave. Presumably something that the adventurers are after. Overall, the idea for this map was to be relatively straightforward and kind of to demonstrate, again, the lighting tools in 3D Canvas. If you're making your own scenes in 3D, then I can't recommend it enough. Adding in some shadows and coloured lights can really take a scene to the next level, even if it's quite a simple one, conceptually. Next up, we've got some arena maps. Every campaign needs at least one arena fight, so we've got some arenas made using just the tools inside 3D Canvas. 4 doors around the perimeter of this one, encircled by Colosseum-style seating, and of course the raised platform with a throne for the Tyrant of the Moon to sit and observe. We've got 4 trapdoors here too that are mat-enabled. They're obviously not set up just yet, so you need to put your own tokens in, but they can be used to trigger enemies spawning into the arena using them. So that's great for a good old-fashioned wave-based brawl. We've got 2 arenas here. We've got this large circular one here, and we've also got this slightly smaller square arena here. It's a little bit more cozy. It's got more of the trapdoors for monster spawning, as well as the doors around the edges for a more traditional way of getting in. I think I like the square arena more, but I couldn't really tell you why. Either way, though, it's great for the occasional spot of blood sports. If you fill out the stairs around each arena with NPC tokens and then change the lightings around a bit, you can get some really varied effects with even just this same map. So I definitely recommend people give that a try. The next map we're looking at is the first map this month made by Violet, which is the Tree Inn. It's a sort of inn, tavern, guild hall type interior structure made inside of a giant tree. It's been decorated with these NPCs, just kind of placed around to make the place feel a bit more busy. I think it was a great idea. And it's a multi-level type situation. So down here at the entrance, you've got a message board, great for pinning quests. And around the back, we have the kind of guild hall offices type area. We've got desks with books, paperwork, maps, shelves loaded with books, alchemical goods, and the corner. This is a pretty good place to plan a far-reaching adventure or to kind of get the players involved in some sort of adventuring society. Above this room, we've got the tavern portion. So we've got tables and chairs, a kitchen in the back there, loaded with various different types of food, and another board here as well, and storage up above. And then over there are the stairs. So these should act like a teleporter using mat. So any token stepping into these stairs should emerge from these ones directly above. So up here we've got the inn level, and we've got several rooms with many bunks and different types of beds. So this has just been created using the room building tool here to great effect. So we've got the area split off into rooms, but it's very easy to see into them from above here. And with the various different types of rooms we've got set up, we've got room for parties of any size here. I think overall this map has a lot of potential to be a kind of base of operations for the players, or even just a place they pass through on occasion. Considering how multifunctional it is, you could find quite a lot of stuff here, I think. These next maps are a lot simpler, and they're kind of desert-themed, but they make great use of the fog feature of 3D Canvas, along with the weather system. In this case, we've got a narrow canyon pass in the midst of a sandstorm, so we've got sand-coloured fog and particles, really kind of selling the low visibility quite well, I think. There's a few nooks and crannies for ambushes to hide in, as well as the space up here on top of the rocks. And I could definitely see this map being useful just to kind of showcase, to have a low visibility, low maneuverability kind of tactical situation. There's also the night version of the map. It's not quite identical, but it's obviously the same idea here. You've got this narrow desert pass, but the sandstorm has passed and now night has fallen. So instead of having a low visibility due to sand particles, it's just very dark. As with any night scene, I could see this being really interesting with a bit of lighting thrown in, or even just a brawl in the dark in this narrow passageway here, a good spot for an ambush. And lastly, we've got the desert dunes. This map is a bit more open and includes a campsite in the center with some prior occupants. Perhaps these previous adventures will give the party a crucial clue. You could, of course, clear off these bodies and the bloodstains and have the occupants still be alive, or maybe just missing. Or you could have the whole camp be empty and just used as a lure by creatures out here in the desert to draw adventurers into a corner. Again, it's a very low visibility, sandstorm type map. Great for tactical interest, I think. Some very classic adventure stuff going on in this desert series, I think. So that about wraps up the maps and assets for this month. As ever, I'd love to hear feedback from you all regarding these. Are there any assets you find really useful? Anything you need more of? Anything you don't really need? Let me know in the comments below, or on the Discord, or any of the other usual channels. Either way, though, I hope you enjoyed the stuff we've got for you this month, and I'll see you all later.
So for this month for Dungeondraft, I've given you guys a huge new tool. I've ported all of the unlimited terrain system into Dungeondraft. So that's right. So since these are tileable images, they work perfectly in Dungeondraft as what I'm calling rich textures. So if I go into my terrain brush, for example, and I go into Baileywiki base assets, all of these rich textures we can now use. Let me create a new scene and show you how they work. I turn on my terrain layer, pick a texture, and I've automatically got something that's interesting. Now, you can find all of these new assets in the Baileywiki base assets pack, which is increased in size quite a bit. Note that we've also retired some textures that didn't work well. We also converted some textures to WebP for size purposes. So you might find that you have to reassociate, for example, some of your roof tiles. If you've used some of my roof textures in the past, you might have to reassociate some of those. Those are in patterns. I've done an entire tutorial on this new system, and it's releasing today. And there is a lot that you can do with this. So I suggest you check out that tutorial, which I'll link here in the video description. But essentially, you can use these new textures as either terrain brushes or as patterns, and essentially create very detailed maps with almost no effort. These then create the base for adding buildings and other items to maps. They work really well with creators like Epsilon, and you'll see a lot of the expanded work. You'll see they work well with creators like Epsilon, and you will see a lot of expanded work with the system from me over the next coming months. Oh, and I didn't just add new textures to terrains and patterns. I also ported over many of the assets from the system as objects, right? So if we go to Baileywiki Wilderness, gives us all kinds of options for dragging things into a scene and being able to do what we do in VTT, but with a lot more fine tuning here in Dungeondraft. So you will seriously be shocked at how quickly you can make scenes that look like this. I mean, this is really just a few brushes. Like there's only 4 brushes here, and I can just as quickly come in here and change this to, a grassy cliffs, maybe snowy cliffs, change it to rock, right? So really, really fast changes to things, and you'll be really surprised at how quickly this comes together. Just more examples of things that you can make. So you not only have all of these, what I call rich textures, right? Which is like very high density. These go from 1K all the way up to 8K to be able to give you a lot of density and avoid repeatability and things like that. But I also give you some really important items on top of that. I give you these chromatic textures. These let you basically shade those other textures if you want to make them darker, lighter, red, purple, orange, different types of tints, that kind of thing. I also give you a bunch of liquids for like the lava pieces, which you saw me pass by some sample scenes with those. You've got some ocean textures. I call those basic textures, things like these rocks. They're very, very beautiful. They're very flexible, but they let you mold and create the rich textures in ways that they weren't, they don't do natively, right? So if I come in here and I want to, basically this started off as a scene that looked like, a couple of cliffs. But I come in here and I actually can then paint rock over these areas, and I can level these out as if by magic, right? And where at once I had, rocks and terrain, now I've leveled it off and I can do other things with it. So that's just a really, really fast glimpse of how you can use this stuff to do really insane things. And as you paint, it gives you this detail that you just really couldn't do if you spent all day on it, right? So that's the power of this system. So I recommend you check out my tutorial and see how this works, and would love to see you come in here and create things of your own, right? You wouldn't believe what the scene started as. It started as just a bunch of rocks, and then it turned into this gradation and ability to come down here in this rock quarry and get down to this, this cave. So it's super magical. I think it's next level stuff for designing maps. I think it's going to make all of us better map makers, and it's also going to be much, much faster to make maps. The time it took to create this, for example, with just putting in some pieces and then layering in a couple of terrains, it's just these 4 terrains, is pretty spectacular. And when you can come in here and you can quickly make changes, like adding jungle and, maybe having grass kind of going through the middle here, it's just spectacular, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. And when you see the other things that have got coming, there's going to be so much that you're going to be able to do, right? You've even got like crazy stuff like settlements and things that you can literally just paint into places. So I recommend you guys check out the tutorial and let me know how you get along with it.
Also new in the Dungeondraft side, we have additions to the Baileywiki Assets APAC in the form of a variety of bridges and bridge components. We have rope bridges that have both damaged and pristine versions, and also have the components in the form of the posts, and they are also available in colorable variants that you can tint to whatever shade of wood that you would like to use for your maps. There's also a variety of simple stone bridges in 2 different textures that have different accompanying accoutrements. And again, all of these are going to be available in various colorable versions so that you can make these tinted to whatever color you need. There are more substantial stone bridges that are available with different levels of ornamentation if you would like to use those. And we have a variety of other simple pieces that are mixtures of stone and wood. Again, most of these have colorable versions and can be used for a variety of different settings. And there are very simple wooden pieces, including composites with roofs that you can use as a 2-tile effect for Foundry or other BTT export. And in addition to all of the colorable versions, there are smaller components. For example, there are pieces to build out the panels of these more ornate bridges, as well as some great gargoyle statues and railing pieces. And there are even more for railings and side pieces that you can use to decorate your bridges, or they also work excellently in other applications for kit bashing. You can find all of these bridge objects available under the BW Bridges, BW Structures, and the appropriate BW Kit Bash Materials tags. In addition to the objects, there are also a variety of new bridge paths. For the rope bridges, there are versions that have less of the curvature to them compared to the object versions, so you can make these bridges as long or as short as you would like. And again, being paths, you can adjust the width to be able to adjust how wide these paths are for your different maps, independent of the length. And there are paths for the hand railings, both in a pristine version and in a damaged version, and all of these have appropriate accompanying shadow paths for a clean shadowed look. In addition to the rope bridges, there are the floor pieces for the more substantial stone bridges. You have a variety of panels to work with and a shadow for the panel itself. And then you also have two paths for the railings. One is a little more simple and one is more ornate, and both use the exact same shadow path. And you can find these in your paths tool towards the bottom with the other Baileywiki paths.
So that's it for the release. If you made it this far, thank you for checking it out, for getting interested in this stuff with us. Let me know in the comments what particularly jumped out at you or what you're excited about. We've seen a lot more live and streaming stuff with our 3D content in it, and we're going to be promoting a lot more of that. So if you are running or streaming videos and games using our content, let us know and we'll help promote what you're doing. We love to see everything out there that's using our stuff. We really like pushing the 3D envelope forward. So yeah, let us know how you get along with everything. And thanks everybody for all your support as usual. All the work that we do around here, all the content exploration that we do it with you and we do it because of you. So again, thanks everybody. And until we talk next time, have fun making your maps.